Throughout modern history, radios have held a very prominent role. Today, radios have been constantly refined and improved to the resulting futuristic product that we currently have. Right now, the world's smallest radio receiver is the astounding size of only 2 atoms, created out of impurities in pink diamonds. Although radios have faded out of popularity in favor of streaming and portable music players, they were once considered to be the technology of the future. Listening to invisible waves through the air, transmitting data over hundreds of kilometers, seems like something out of the realm of science fiction. Thankfully, the radio is firmly rooted in the science of radio waves. Radio waves are a type of electromagnetic radiation. They are a part of the electromagnetic spectrum. As you can see in this diagram, radio waves fit into the low end of the spectrum. They travel at the speed of light in the shape of a wave, moving from the crest or peak to the trough or low point of the wave. Every radio wave has a specific wavelength that will determine the use of the wave. For example, today we typically use very short waves in the transmission of data for the accuracy and speed that it grants. Other wavelengths have also been used. Long waves, while not common today, were previously used to transmit radio signals when sound quality was not a significant issue. Radio waves were first predicted in 1864 by James Clerk Maxwell. He published the ideas in his scientific paper, A Dynamical Theory of the Electromagnetic Field. After the possible existence of electromagnetic waves was proposed, a slew of other scientists quickly began to experiment and study the properties of these waves. In 1878, David Edward Hughes, a British-American inventor, found that the sparks he created through an induction balance produced sound in a telephone microphone he modified. Quickly, David created a portable model and found that even at some distance down the street, the signal could still be heard. Soon after the experiment, Hughes documented and presented his findings to the Royal Society in London, but was dismissed. 8 years after Hughes completed his experiment, a German scientist, Heinrich Rudolf Hertz, conducted a series of experiments that proved James Maxwell's original ideas. He was able to produce and receive radio waves and proved that they travel through free space. This experiment was conducted on the small apparatus that you can see here. Although transmission was achieved, the distance that the waves had to travel was extremely small. Until 1897, long-distance transmission remained an idea, one that was made a reality by a single man, Guglielmo Marconi. Considered to be the father of radio, Marconi had a passion for radio ever since his early childhood. When he was 20 years old, Marconi studied radio waves, performing experiments in his attic with the help of the family butler. By the summer of 1895, he had already transmitted waves at a distance of 3.2 kilometers. Just 2 years later, he had achieved a 16-kilometer transmission range. Then, in 1901, he made groundbreaking history. Marconi created and received a 3,500-kilometer transmission across the Atlantic Ocean. Sending a message from England to St. John's, Newfoundland was a significant achievement. Take a look at the equipment he used. Flying a kite to lift the aerial, he was able to hear the faint signal come from all the way across the ocean, originating in Poldhu, Cornwall. After the spectacle of science, Marconi went on to continue his work in the radio field, opening the world's first radio factory in 1912 and contributing to the science of radio waves until his death in 1937. Shortly after Marconi's transmission across the Atlantic, another great milestone was achieved. Canadian scientist Reginald A. Fessenden became the first person to transmit audio over radio waves in 1900. He sent a distorted version of his voice over an astounding 1.6 kilometer distance. 6 years later, Fessenden engaged in the first two-way Morse code transmission across the Atlantic. Take a look at the huge equipment he needed to complete this engineering feat. 10 years later, voice transmission first emerged to the public when a performance from the Metropolitan Opera House was broadcast by Lee DeForest. Public listening stations were set up around the city of New York, with the broadcast even being picked up by some ships passing by. 4 years later, the First World War helped to show the radio's use in a military situation. Although it was not significantly used, the First World War prompted both the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente to develop their own radio technology. Shortly, near the end of the war, radios began to emerge in military vehicles and spotting planes. Check out this unit here. The Germans even used radios to navigate their airships, prompting the French to send out their own fake signals to turn the ships away. The radio was rapidly developing during this time period, with daily public broadcasting starting in 1921 with KDKA Pittsburgh. The radio's true emergence into the public occurred during the Second World War, however, an event that shaped its perception like no other. World War II was a battle between huge, powerful countries. It was a war between the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the Allies, the UK, Soviet Union, China, and the US, among others. This atrocious, everlasting warfare went on for an agonizing 6 years. All throughout this time period, a powerful weapon emerged. It may not have had the same damage as a gun, but in the right hands, the radio is more powerful than any other weapon on Earth. Whoever controls the media controls the masses. Let's explore radio and how it was used during this time period. During the war, the radio was used as a huge propaganda tool. From broadcasting Hitler's famous speeches to ads promoting the war effort, the radio was used to its full potential as a tool with the ability to connect with an enormous audience. Some noticeable pieces of propaganda originated from the Axis powers in the form of Lord Ha-Ha, Tokyo Rose, and Axis Sally. These shows typically were the lone source of information available to troops behind enemy lines, and they consequently tuned into them. The shows were intended to bring down troop morale and reduce their willpower to fight. Listen to this insulting broadcast originating from the pro-German show Lord Ha-Ha.
Germany calling, Germany calling, Germany calling. One would describe as the height of cynicism. The message sent by the First Lord of the Admiralty to the captain of the British destroyer Cossack, congratulating him on his gallant rescue efforts. Only a person of Mr. Churchill's mentality could congratulate anybody, first on shooting unarmed men, and secondly, on flagrantly violating Norwegian neutrality.
Listening to that horrible man insulting your country just to learn the fate of your friends would have been unbearable. There was also Allied propaganda, typically in the form of the Voice of America, intending to have an opposite effect on the troops. Promising to bring only truthful news from America, Voice of America was an enormous success, broadcasted overseas by 39 transmitters in 40 languages. During the war, the radio attempted to bring the realities of the war back home by any means possible. The radio was the most popular form of entertainment during this time period and consequently became the most efficient tool in reaching the masses. On-the-ground reporting led to a stream of accurate news reports returning home. During all non-news broadcasting, war could be found as a distinct undertone of programs. The enemy in dramas and soap operas now turned into a monster from the Axis powers. Broadcasting corporations tried to utilize broadcasts to keep people informed and in high spirits. American President Franklin Delano Roosevelt held a series of widely successful fireside chats in which he spoke to the people as if he was in their own homes. Listening to the radio during this time period, you could not escape the war.
This country is at war with Germany.
During the war, there was a need to transmit coded data between military personnel. Without a code, the other side could easily intercept and listen to the transmission, gaining valuable information. Although there was a number of ciphers and cryptographic codes used during the Second World War, a specific code shines above all the others. The German Enigma code cannot be understated. This extremely hard to break code caused many headaches as scientists raced to break it. Originally intended to be used for commercial purposes before the war, Enigma was quickly adopted as the military standard for security. The physical machine represents a typewriter with a series of rotors, plugs, and rings that create a possible 15 quintillion combinations. The encrypted signal could be transmitted via radio to another machine where it would be decoded. Take a look at this picture of an Enigma machine. Although it seems complicated to use, all the operators had to do was set their machines to the same rotor, plug, and ring combination to allow seamless transmission. It was due to procedural flaws, operator mistakes, and captured equipment that allows the Allies to break this code. World War II introduced a new type of rapid movement warfare. Compare the difference in fighting techniques between these images of the First and Second World War. The need for instant communication was a crucial key to success in the Second World War. An overwhelming number of radio sets were built during this time, too many to cover in one sitting. Take a look at all these. The most commonly used radio was the number 19 set. At around 80 pounds, it comprised of two different sets, one for sending, one for receiving. They were typically carried in 2-ton radio vans, known as gin palaces, as well as jeeps, tanks, and armored cars. Hey, did you know that the word over was coined during the operation of this radio? The radio operator had to switch over from the receiving set to the sending set every time he wanted to send a message. They used over at the end of a transmission to tell the other operator to switch his set over. Canada was deeply involved with radio during this time. At the start of the war, the radio in Canada was regarded as a novelty, but in 1939, the radio became vital to receive news and information in relation to the war. A news division of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the CBC, was created in 1941 specifically for this purpose. Before the war, the majority of radio programs available in Canada were American. During the war, however, our programming blossomed and rapidly developed as a barrage of series connected to the war were released. The popular shows Theater of Freedom, Fighting Navy, L for Lanky, and Soldier's Wife soon replaced American soap operas. The radio greatly helped to define Canada during this time and further the development of our own arts and culture. We went from almost complete American influence to developing our own shows in the span of less than a year. This transformation is all thanks to World War II and the radio. The radio is a truly remarkable device. Throughout my research, I uncovered a wealth of data that opened my eyes to the uses and capabilities of this machine. This topic came to me naturally as I've always been fascinated with the radio. Listening to my first international broadcast with my grandfather on a shortwave radio, it just blew my mind. A book-sized device located in Montreal could pick up a signal in Cuba. I saw this product as the perfect opportunity to learn more about this great device while also fueling my scientific and engineering curiosities. I am extremely thankful that I chose this amazing topic to study. Thank you for watching this documentary. Have a great day.